The delivery room erupted in chaos as Dr. Martinez lifted the second baby, her hands trembling slightly. The silence stretched like a taut wire, broken only by the rhythmic beeping of monitors and Sarah's labored breathing. Marcus Whitmore III, heir to a telecommunications empire worth $4 billion, stood frozen beside the hospital bed, his designer suit wrinkled from hours of pacing, his grey eyes wide with shock as he stared at the two beautiful infants now placed on his wife's chest. Both babies were perfect, 10 fingers, 10 toes, healthy cries filling the sterile air. But their skin was unmistakably dark, rich brown like polished mahogany, nothing like their pale, exhausted mother or their stunned father. "Whose children are these?" Marcus whispered, his voice cutting through the room like shattered glass. Sarah's eyes, still glazed from exhaustion and medication, focused on her husband with desperate clarity. "They are yours, Marcus. I have been faithful. I swear to you, I have never." "Don't!" His word came out sharp, final. He stepped back from the bed as if the babies might burn him. "Just don't!" The nurses exchanged uncomfortable glances, suddenly finding tasks that required their immediate attention. Dr. Martinez cleared her throat diplomatically. "Mr. Whitmore, perhaps you'd like some time to—" "No." Marcus's jaw clenched. "I need air." He pushed through the delivery room doors, nearly colliding with his mother, Victoria Whitmore, who'd been pacing the hallway in her Chanel suit and pearl necklace. Behind her stood his sister Caroline and brother-in-law Richard, their faces masks of polite concern that barely concealed their anticipation. "Well?" Victoria demanded. "Are they healthy?" Marcus couldn't find words. He just stared at his mother's expectant face, knowing that in minutes everything would change. Caroline pushed past him into the delivery room, her sharp heels clicking on the linoleum. Her gasp carried clearly through the partially open door. "Mother," she called, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You need to see this." Victoria swept into the room, took one look at the babies, and her face transformed into something cold and triumphant. She'd never approved of Marcus's marriage to Sarah Chen, the daughter of a factory worker who'd somehow captured her son's heart during his brief rebellious phase at Harvard. "Well, well," Victoria said, her voice carrying that particular tone she reserved for servants who'd broken something valuable. "I suppose the poor little gold digger thought she could pass these off as Whitmore heirs." Sarah struggled to sit up, clutching her babies protectively. "Mrs. Whitmore, please. These are your grandchildren, your son's children." "My son's children?" Victoria laughed, a sound like crystal breaking. "My dear girl, I may not have attended public school, but even I understand basic biology." Richard stepped forward, his lawyer's instincts already calculating. "Marcus, we need to handle this quietly. No press, no scandal. A simple, clean divorce settlement and—" "Shut up!" Marcus's voice was barely audible, but it stopped all conversation. He was staring at the babies, something unreadable flickering across his face. "Everyone out! Now!" "Marcus," Victoria began. "Out!" The family retreated to the hallway, their whispered conversations already beginning. Sarah watched her husband approach the bed slowly, his face a mask she'd never seen before. 5 years, he said quietly. 5 years we've been married, Sarah. 5 years of my family telling me you were just after my money. 5 years of me defending you, believing in us." He looked down at the babies. And now this. "Marcus, please, listen to me. I know how this looks, but I swear on my mother's grave, don't swear anything else to me." His voice was hollow. "I can't. I need to think." He turned toward the door, then stopped. "I'll arrange for the best care for you and the children, but I won't be here when you wake up tomorrow." As the door closed behind him, Sarah Chen Whitmore held her twins closer, their innocent faces the only witnesses to her whispered promise. "I don't care what it takes. I will prove to the world that you belong to us." Outside in the hallway, Marcus's family was already making plans, their voices carrying the satisfaction of those who'd been proven right. They'd waited 5 years for this moment, the moment when the poor girl's lies would finally be exposed. None of them noticed the hospital orderly in the corner, quietly taking photos with his phone, dollar signs already flashing in his eyes. By 6 a.m., Sarah's world had exploded. The hospital orderly, Tommy Martinez, drowning in student loans and credit card debt, had sold the photos to 3 different tabloids for $15,000 each. The first headline hit the internet before Sarah had even finished her breakfast. Scandal in the mansion. Billionaire's wife delivers black twins. Her phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, every platform erupted with memes, jokes, and cruel commentary that spread like wildfire. From rags to riches to ruin, the poor girl's ultimate lie screamed the cover of Celebrity Weekly, featuring a grainy photo of Sarah holding the babies, her exhausted face twisted by the camera angle to look guilty and scheming. Marcus hadn't returned to the hospital. His assistant had called that morning, cold, professional, informing her that a security detail would escort her home and that the Mr. Whitmore would be unavailable for the foreseeable future. The ride home was a nightmare. Paparazzi swarmed the hospital exit, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions that cut like knives. "Sarah, how long were you cheating? Who's the real father? Was this your plan all along?" The babies cried in their carriers as the security team pushed through the mob, their small faces already becoming the most recognizable in America for all the wrong reasons. At the Whitmore estate, staff members who'd known Sarah for 5 years now avoided eye contact. Maria, the housekeeper who'd helped plan Sarah's baby shower just months before, couldn't even look at her as she carried the babies upstairs. The gates were lined with news vans. Helicopters circled overhead like vultures. Sarah's phone rang constantly, reporters offering money for her side of the story. Talk show producers promising sympathetic platforms that she knew would turn into ambush interviews. That evening, late-night comedians had a field day. Sarah watched in horror as Jimmy Fallon delivered his monologue, so apparently money can't buy you everything, like a basic understanding of genetics. I mean, what was she thinking? Maybe if I dim the lights, he won't notice. The audience roared with laughter while Sarah sat alone in her bedroom, nursing her twins as tears streamed down her face. Social media was worse. The hashtag Who's Daddy trended worldwide. Memes flooded every platform. Sarah's face photoshopped onto cheating girlfriend templates, fake DNA test results, cruel comparisons between the babies and random black celebrities. But the cruelest blow came from Marcus's family themselves. Victoria Whitmore held an impromptu press conference on the estate's front steps, looking regal and wounded in her black Armani dress. "The Whitmore family is devastated by this betrayal," she announced to the gathered media, her voice perfectly modulated for maximum sympathy. "We welcomed Sarah into our family with open hearts, despite her humble origins. We supported her, loved her, treated her like the daughter we never had." She paused for effect, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "But we never imagined she would stoop to such deception. These children," another pause, "these children are not Whitmore's. They never could be. And while we feel sorry for Sarah's predicament, we cannot allow our family name to be destroyed by her lies." The reporters ate it up. By evening, the narrative had solidified. Sarah Chen Whitmore, the gold-digging factory worker's daughter, had finally been exposed. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister Jenny in California. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. Don't read the comments. Just focus on the babies. We know you're telling the truth." But Jenny was the only one. Old friends from college posted carefully neutral messages on social media, just distant enough to avoid association with the scandal. Her own mother called, crying, begging her to just tell the truth so this can end. "I am telling the truth," Sarah whispered into the phone, but even she could hear how weak it sounded. That night, she stood at her bedroom window, looking down at the media circus below. Reporters had set up camps with professional lighting equipment. The story was too good, too perfect. The poor girl who thought she could fool a billionaire finally getting her comeuppance. Marcus's business was suffering too. Whitmore Telecommunications stock had dropped 12% in 2 days. Board members were pressuring him to make a statement, to distance himself from the scandal. Still, he remained hidden, unreachable, letting his family's narrative take hold while Sarah faced the storm alone. She looked down at her sleeping twins, Emma and Ethan, the names she and Marcus had chosen together during happier times, and made a silent promise. "I don't care if the whole world thinks I'm lying," she whispered. "I know who your father is, and somehow I'll prove it." 3 weeks into the media firestorm, Marcus finally appeared. He entered Sarah's bedroom like a stranger, his face gaunt from sleepless nights and the weight of public humiliation. The twins were napping in their cribs, oblivious to the chaos surrounding their existence. "The board is demanding answers," he said without preamble. "Stock prices are in free fall. I have investors threatening to pull out of billion-dollar deals." Sarah looked up from where she sat feeding Emma, her eyes red-rimmed but determined. "Then let's get the DNA test. End this nightmare." "You want the test?" His voice was incredulous. "I've been begging for it since day one. You're the one who's been avoiding it." Marcus stared at her for a long moment. Despite everything, the photos, the media circus, his family's certainty, something in Sarah's unwavering insistence gave him pause. "Fine," he said quietly. "Tomorrow." The next morning, they drove to the most reputable genetics lab in the city, flanked by security to push through the inevitable crowd of reporters. Dr. Elizabeth Carver, a renowned geneticist, conducted the tests personally, understanding the sensitivity of the situation. "Results will be available in 48 hours, she assured them. Those 2 days felt like eternity. Sarah barely slept, pacing the nursery, whispering reassurances to her babies while Marcus holed up in his study, drinking expensive scotch and ignoring his family's increasingly smug confidence. Victoria had already begun planning her vindication tour. "When those results come back," she told Caroline, "I want every major network. I want the world to see how this little gold digger tried to destroy our family." But when Dr. Carver called on Thursday morning, her voice was oddly strained. "Mr. Whitmore, could you and your wife come in today? I'd like to discuss the results in person." At the lab, Dr. Carver looked uncomfortable as she spread the documents across her desk. "I have to be honest with you, these results are unexpected." She opened the first folder. "According to our tests, Mr. Whitmore, you are not the biological father of these children." The words hit like a physical blow. Sarah gasped, grabbing the edge of the desk. "That's impossible. It's impossible." Marcus felt vindicated and devastated simultaneously. "So it's true. She did. However," Dr. Carver interrupted, her frown deepening, "I must tell you, I've been doing this for 25 years, and something about these results troubled me. The genetic markers showed some anomalies that didn't sit right." She pulled out a second set of papers. "I took the liberty of running the tests again with a different lab, using fresh samples. I hope you don't mind the delay, but I wanted to be absolutely certain." Sarah's heart pounded as Dr. Carver opened the second folder. "These results tell a completely different story. Mr. Whitmore, you are definitively the biological father of both children. The probability is 99.97%. The room spun. Marcus grabbed his chair for support. "What? How is that possible?" "Someone tampered with the first test," Dr. Carver said grimly. "The initial samples were contaminated. Deliberately. This level of interference would require inside knowledge of our procedures and significant financial resources." Sarah began crying, not from sadness this time, but from overwhelming relief. "I told you," she whispered. "I told everyone." But Dr. Carver wasn't finished. "Mr. Whitmore, there's something else. In analyzing your DNA for the paternity test, we discovered some fascinating genetic markers. Are you aware of any African ancestry in your family line?" Marcus's face went white. "What are you talking about?" "Your DNA shows clear markers indicating African heritage, specifically about 12 to 15%. This would typically come from a great-grandparent or great-great-grandparent." The revelation hit Marcus like lightning. His family had always prided themselves on their pure European bloodline, their connection to old American wealth, their carefully curated image of Anglo-Saxon superiority. "That's impossible," he stammered. "Our family tree goes back centuries. We have documentation." "Documentation can be falsified, Mr. Whitmore. DNA cannot." Sarah stared at her husband as the full implications became clear. "The twins' appearance, they're not anomalies. They're expressing genes you carry." Marcus's hands shook as he reached for his phone. "I need to call my private investigator immediately." Within hours, Detective Ray Harrison, the same investigator Marcus had hired weeks earlier to dig up dirt on Sarah, was redirecting his considerable talents toward the Whitmore family history. What he found buried in courthouse records, hidden adoption papers, and carefully destroyed documents was explosive. Marcus's great-grandfather, Theodore Whitmore, had been born Theodore Washington, a mixed-race child who'd passed for white after his black father was murdered by the KKK in 1923. Theodore had systematically erased his heritage, forged documents, and built the Whitmore empire on the foundation of racial denial. For 4 generations, the family had buried their truth so deep that even they'd forgotten it. But genes remember what hearts choose to forget. Harrison's final revelation was the most damning. Marcus's own mother, Victoria, had discovered this family's secret 5 years ago during genealogy research for a family biography. She'd hired a team of lawyers and genealogists to bury the information completely. And when the twins were born, she'd recognized immediately what they represented. Not Sarah's infidelity, but the family's deepest shame made flesh. The bribed hospital orderly, the falsified DNA results, the media manipulation, all orchestrated by Victoria Whitmore to destroy Sarah before the truth could destroy them. Marcus sat in his study that evening, staring at the evidence spread across his desk. DNA results, genealogy reports, financial records showing payments to lab technicians, and a recorded phone call between Victoria and the hospital orderly. His wife was innocent. His children were his own. And his family had built an empire on lies that nearly destroyed the woman he claimed to love. The truth was about to set them all free. But first, it would bring the Whitmore dynasty crashing down. Marcus made the call at 6 a.m. on Friday morning. "This is Marcus Whitmore. I'm holding a press conference at 2 p.m. today. Make sure every major network is there." The media, sensing another explosive development in the story that had captivated the nation for weeks, descended on the Whitmore estate like a swarm. What they expected was a final nail in Sarah's coffin, perhaps a divorce announcement or custody arrangements. What they got was a complete narrative destruction. Marcus stood at the podium in his best suit, but his eyes were hollow, aged by weeks of devastating revelation. Behind him sat Sarah, holding Emma and Ethan, her chin raised with quiet dignity after weeks of public humiliation. 3 weeks ago, Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly across the packed lawn, I stood in a hospital room and doubted my wife's faithfulness. I allowed my family to orchestrate a campaign of lies that nearly destroyed an innocent woman and our children. Reporters leaned forward, sensing the shift. Today, I have evidence that will shock you, but not in the way you expect. He held up the DNA results. These are legitimate paternity tests. Emma and Ethan Whitmore are my biological children. The earlier test that seemed to prove otherwise was falsified. The crowd erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions over each other. Marcus raised his hand for silence. But that's not the most shocking truth I have to share today. He pulled out Detective Harrison's genealogy report. My family built our empire on a lie that spans 4 generations. My great-grandfather, Theodore Whitmore, was born Theodore Washington, a mixed-race child who was forced to deny his black heritage to survive in 1920s America. The silence was deafening now. The children you see behind me aren't the product of infidelity. They're the product of genetics. They carry the African heritage that my family has spent a century trying to erase. Sarah watched the reporters' faces change from anticipation to stunned disbelief. This wasn't the story anyone had expected. Furthermore, Marcus continued, his voice growing stronger with each word, I have evidence that my mother, Victoria Whitmore, discovered this family secret years ago and conspired to frame my wife when the twins were born. She bribed hospital staff, falsified medical records, and orchestrated a media campaign designed to destroy Sarah rather than let our family's truth come to light. He held up a recording device. I have taped confessions, financial records, and documented proof of a conspiracy that victimized an innocent woman to protect a lie. The media explosion was immediate. Within minutes, #Whitmore conspiracy was trending worldwide. The story that had made Sarah Chen Whitmore the most hated woman in America suddenly flipped completely. By evening, new headlines dominated every platform. DNA deception, how a billionaire family framed an innocent mother. 4 generations of lies, the Whitmore Empire's racist foundation. Hero or victim, Sarah Whitmore's stunning vindication. Late-night comedians who'd mocked Sarah for weeks suddenly pivoted to savage takedowns of the Whitmore family's hypocrisy. Social media users who'd created cruel memes about Sarah began posting apologies and support messages. Victoria Whitmore was arrested that evening on charges of fraud, conspiracy, and filing false reports. The image of the once regal matriarch in handcuffs became the photograph of the year. But the most powerful moment came during Sarah's first interview since the vindication. Sitting across from Oprah Winfrey, holding her twins with quiet strength, Sarah was asked how she'd survived the public crucifixion. "I held my babies every night," she said simply, "and I told them their story. Not the lies the world was telling, but their real story. I told them about their father, who lost his way but found it again. I told them about their great-great-grandfather, who was brave enough to survive in a world that wanted to destroy him. And I told them that the truth always survives, even when lies seem stronger." The interview aired to 30 million viewers, transforming Sarah from a vilified gold digger into a symbol of resilience and truth. Marcus, meanwhile, faced the harder task of rebuilding. He'd lost his mother to federal prison, his siblings to their own shame, and nearly his wife to his cowardice. The Whitmore empire survived, but forever changed. The final scene played out 6 months later at Emma and Ethan's first birthday party, a small, intimate gathering in their renovated home. No paparazzi, no media circus, just family and the few friends who'd stood by them. Sarah watched Marcus playing with their children on the living room floor, their laughter filling the house that had once felt like a mausoleum. The twins babbled and giggled, blissfully unaware that they'd been at the center of a national scandal. "They'll grow up knowing their whole story," Marcus said, looking up at his wife. "The good and the bad. No more family secrets." Sarah smiled, finally at peace. No more lies. The twins reached for both parents simultaneously, their small hands bridging the space between past and future, between shame and acceptance. In their innocent faces, the truth that had nearly destroyed a family had become the foundation for something better, a legacy built on honesty rather than deception. The Whitmore name would survive, but it would mean something completely different now. Not old money built on buried shame, but new truth built on the courage to face the past and choose love over fear. Outside, the sun set over a family finally free from the lies that had bound them for generations. Their children the living proof that truth, however long buried, always finds a way to emerge into the light. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your location in the comments. I'd love to know where you're watching from.